What up, y'all? DJ Dirty Harry hanging out with my guys at Rainieravenueradio.world. Check them out.
Yo.
What up, though?
I got to talk. I gotta tell what I feel. Gotta talk about my life as I see it.
All right, then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
StreetBeat.
With Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
StreetBeat. Tony.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Street Beat right here on Rainieravenueradio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. We're going to be talking about HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. As a very special guest joining me on the show. If you're just joining us today, I also, before we get started, just want to let you know again, we broke some news today about an armed robbery where someone in a wheelchair was robbed and went to the West Coast building. SWAT teams and everybody surrounded the building. This went on for a couple hours. Eventually they went in and whoever it was not there. So he either escaped or got away. Anyway, just so that you know that there is someone in South Seattle, because I don't know if you're hearing this from your other media, who robbed someone in a wheelchair at gunpoint. The police did not find him. And so that information should actually get out. So, back to what we're talking about now. Historically black colleges and universities, and I do have some guests joining me. I want to give you a little bit of information about just historically black colleges and universities, which essentially were founded, prior to the Civil War, in Pennsylvania and Ohio. And then in 1865, anyway, you had Howard, institutions that are still here. What is now known as Clark, Atlanta, it used to be Atlanta University, and of course Morehouse, and so now over 100 HBCUs, and I have some guests joining me today. We're going to have a discussion. Again, if you're just tuning in, what we're talking about is historically black colleges and universities, and my guest joining me on the show, I'm going to start with Mr. Rick DuPree, who's the Director of Community Partnerships for Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he's also the Rainier Avenue Radio Sports Director. Mr. DuPree. Rick? Okay. Well, we'll see.
Can you hear me okay now?
Okay, Rick, there we go.
Okay. How you doing? Thank you for the introduction. Good to be on the show with you, man.
All right, and good to have you here, Rick. And then also joining me on the program, used to be the principal of Rainier Beach High School, so the Rainier, if you see Rainier Avenue Radio, the strong connection there. And currently the Director of Education and Early Learning for the city of Seattle, known as DEAL, and also a Grambling graduate. I forgot to mention that Mr. DuPree also went to FAMU, Florida, and also, sorry, Rick. See, now
that's okay. I was at FAMU, Florida A&M, and then transferred to UW.
Yeah,
so
then in the UW.
Of the HBCU, but I just spent some time down there in the Florida area.
Okay, but Dwane, good to have you on the show, my man. Dwane Chappelle, how you doing, Dwane?
Great. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here amongst all of you, Linda and Rick as well.
And also joining me on the show, and I think it's really important to have this individual be part of the conversation. It lends us the opportunity to also talk about the importance of this entity. Linda.Thompson-Black, the Pacific Northwest Area Development Director for the United Negro College Fund, UNCF. Linda, welcome to the show. Linda, are you there? Okay. Well, we'll see about getting Linda on, and I'm sure you'll let me know. We'll get this conversation started. But I know Linda's here, and we'll work out the technical difficulty of whatever that particular thing is. So just to get started with both of you, gentlemen, again, from my perspective, you heard me mention a couple of things earlier about pre-Civil War, Civil War, and the history, just slightly going into it. If you think about, that period of time, universities, education being important, black colleges and universities are intrinsically intermingled into the history of this country. And so when you think about the potential of maybe even there not being black colleges and universities, that is a critical crisis to this country. You may disagree with that, but again, just thinking in terms of what these institutions have meant, it should not be taken lightly that they are being threatened, which they pretty much always have been. Their existence was something that was difficult in the first place. Having said that, we're going to have some conversations today about some things that are taking place in black colleges, but I want to give each of you just about a minute before we get started, just to tell me where you personally sit on what HBCUs are and their impact and the role that they play. We'll start with you, Rick.
Yeah, when I think of HBCUs, and I know for me, coming out of high school, being born and raised in the Seattle area, didn't have the culture that I want in terms of knowing as much as I want to know about the black culture, about my history. Certainly didn't learn it in the Seattle public schools, and so when I was looking at schools to go, honestly, I was looking for to play football. And, Florida A&M was one of the 4 schools that I was admitted to. But what I found there was a home, and I wish I would have stayed. But, I think for the history of our people, the fact that these universities were there when we couldn't go to any other university, and when we were not allowed to be admitted to those universities, and the care that the professors, the care that those administrators took in those students going there, and there was an expectation that you're going to go here and you're going to succeed, and we're going to prepare you to succeed in this world, and that is still relevant today. And I can speak as a parent who has a almost 31-year-old daughter who graduated from Howard University, and the impact that experience has had on her, it's just been incredible. So I think they're incredibly viable, and something that we need to continue to make sure our students are aware of. That this is an opportunity, for you, and don't overlook the HBCUs.
And Dwane, again, just your personal opinion before we dive into some of these issues and questions. What do you think about historically black colleges and universities?
I think they're they are amazing institutions for our young folks out there. And one thing that I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on what Brother DuPree was just talking about, not only they're amazing institutions, but they are historically known for being the tool or for the outlet for higher education for black folks when black folks weren't accepted originally at PWI. So I appreciate you for bringing that up, Rick, and I just want to make sure we elaborate on that. And what I also think about them, it's an opportunity for young folks that look like us to go down and attend, be in an environment that's nurturing and caring and exhibiting black brilliance such as themselves or ourselves, while you're pursuing what your next goal in life will be. I also know, and I'm speaking from my personal experience, it gave me an opportunity to develop my identity, my character, and especially being a black man navigating this world. So those are a couple of things I wanted to highlight.
Linda, are you in the conversation now?
I hope I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Linda, welcome to the program. I don't know how much you've been able to hear. Are you just hearing now as well?
No, I was able to hear everything. It just was on mute I think.
Okay.
So, well, I know both of my wonderful colleagues and friends that are on the phone, and I echo what they said. I think the opportunity for the African American community to have HBCUs is absolutely essential. And the opportunities we provide for young people, can't be replaced. And we have to protect them with everything that we have. We have to celebrate our accomplishment of having, over the last 150 years, having over 450,000 students that have graduated as a result of HBCU. I frequently talked to Dwane and said that when I was growing up in Seattle, my dad went to Grambling and to Tuskegee, and he was one of just below the Tuskegee Airmen. And I thought that everybody went to an HBCU because that's where people went at that time. And that's where the people who we knew went. And it's given so much opportunities to so many people. And we knew that early on when people came, when we had less opportunities. And we want to protect the potential of losing ground as a result of it. So we provide educational opportunities. We provide the wonderful experience of being celebrated on those campuses and of having high expectations and having an environment where they're seeking financial support for us as students. And that's very important.
Oh, you know what? On that note, we're going to dive right into this. And when you're talking about HBCUs, that means different things to different people. And what an HBCU is means different things to different people. But according to the UNCF, the United Negro College Fund, HBCUs are responsible for 25% of all African-American science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees. The top universities that help produce these graduates include Florida A&M University, Rick was just talking about, Howard University, which I mentioned earlier, Hampton University, Morgan State University, and North Carolina A&T State University. So HBCUs were responsible for awarding 14% of all African American engineering degrees. Why is this, for one? And this is a question that's going to go all to you, or maybe Dwane, I might start with you even on this. Why is this, and what does that mean for the brand of HBCUs when you have those kind of numbers in STEM? What does that mean about the brand? What does that say about the brand? Is enough being said about that?
I think Linda, I would actually defer this to Linda, with Linda being UNCF. I think this is something key. Being part of her UNCF council that she speaks about highly, and I would definitely defer this one to you, Linda.
I'm gonna let you defer to Linda, but I'm still gonna ask you and Rick the question. So, Linda, I will let you go ahead because I still want you can still tell me what it means for you about the brand. But Linda, I will start with you then.
Well, there has been a focus on STEM education since the inception of HBCUs. And we always understood the importance of it, and we wanted to make those opportunities available to African American students. So HBCUs have intentionally developed their STEM programs, and they've built upon that powerful foundation. I would add Xavier to that because Xavier produces, the most doctors, physicians, pharmacists, and nurses of most HBCUs, but that's a big source of the medical community. So we're smaller, we have less students, but we're disproportionately producing STEM graduates. And it's also a very wonderful environment for African Americans to pursue STEM education because people really believe in you. They're not questioning your ability. They are ensuring that you have everything you need to be successful. They're providing internships and the career pathway to strong STEM education. So this is a complete gift. And we're seeing an expanding number of non-African American students, Indians, Asians, European Americans, who are going to HBCUs to get into our, engineering, technical, and biology and medical schools. And so this is a real contribution that HBCUs make.
Okay, you are listening to Rainieravenueradio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is StreetBeat, and we're having conversations about HBCUs. Still important, still challenged. And my guest again, you just heard Linda from United Negro College Fund, and Dwane and Rick. Again, part of the reason, gentlemen, why I have you on here is to tell me your opinion. So again, Dwane, I'm gonna come back to you, bruh. Just, I know what that means to me when I hear, about the numbers of African-American students who are graduating in STEM fields because of black colleges and universities. And I'm asking you, for the school, what does that mean for the brand? Maybe it means nothing. From your perspective, what does that mean for the HBCU brand?
Oh, I think it means a lot for the HBCU brand, that we can sit up here and say that we're putting X amount of percent of African-American male and females into these STEM field or career-related fields. That says a lot, and it speaks volumes to the brand of what each HBCU is doing. I know you mentioned earlier, I believe you mentioned Spelman, that you said that a lot of the STEM-related activities, they're being recruited from Spelman. And the last that I checked, I know Spelman had one of the highest completion rates. And so, that it just, when it comes to STEM related and the brand of a school, any young African-American male or female or a person of color when they look and see that certain schools are putting an X amount of folks into these STEM related careers, then that's the brand right there, right? And that's what magnets, what young people are attracted to. And so at the end of the day, I know most folks that look like us want to go somewhere where they feel nurtured, where they feel valued, and where they're in a place of sense of where it comes from, like their home. Black families are very tight-knit families, and when you step onto these campuses, if they can get that same feeling as if they're at home and knowing that they're going to get a top-rate education, and then have an opportunity to step into a career, that's excellence, and that's what folks are trying to do.
And Rick, same question again. According to the United Negro College Fund, HBCUs are responsible for 25% of all African American science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees. As the director of community partnerships at Seattle Academy, or just from your own perspective, what does that say about the brand, those types of numbers in STEM for the entire country?
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to the brand that there is this commitment to excellence. Number one, they've had to be visionary, and from the start. And as African Americans, as Black people, we've always heard, you got to be better. And I'll give you an example. My uncle, my mom's oldest brother, was a Tuskegee Airman. And if you've done some research on the Tuskegee Airmen, you've seen the movies and what have you, but the white soldiers didn't want to give them an opportunity, but when they got the opportunity, they proved that they were better, and they were then requested. And that is the expectation that is put on students coming out. Again, I use my daughter as an example. She's a fine arts major, musical theater major from Howard University, and the professors that she worked with, they worked in the industry and they prepared those students. She talks about how they made sure they knew what to expect when they went out on a professional audition, when they were going to be working in a professional show, on a professional set. And so the expectation that we have for us is higher. And as Dwane said, and Linda's talked about, the nurturing nature of the schools. And I remember stepping into my first class at Florida A&M, and to Dwane's point, it felt like home, because the professor, said, look, baby, we're not going to let you fail. We're going to make sure you succeed. And I think that is a big part of why you see those numbers, Tony, the way that you see them. And again, I go back to the fact that from the beginning, we've had to be entrepreneurial. We've had to be visionary. We've had to think about where do we need to be, not what's happening now, but what is the future going to hold, and how can we prepare our students to make a difference in the world. And that's what you see on HBCU campuses. And so they are incredibly relevant, and we have to continue to figure out how to make sure funding is getting there to these schools, and that the opportunity, that the students know about it. Because you go back in Seattle, and probably I had a brother that went to Morehouse, and I think right around kind of the early mid 70s, people in Seattle started to maybe know a little bit more about HBCUs, and you started to see some students going, and now the numbers have gone up. But it's still out on the West Coast. A lot of people don't know about them, and don't know and understand what a viable option it is. And one last thing I'll say, I have a cousin who went to Morehouse recently, graduated, and what Morehouse has done with their engineering department, they've partnered with the University of Michigan. And so his final year, he was at the University of Michigan. And so that partnership, again, having to think entrepreneurially, how can we stay relevant? And that partnership was significant for my cousin as he got his degree.
You're listening to Rainieravenueradio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is StreetBeat, having a discussion about HBCUs. Still very much a part of our society, but still challenged. My guests are Mr. Rick DuPree, the Director of Community Partnerships for Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, and also our Rainier Avenue Radio Sports Director. He'll actually be doing the sports show about the Last Dance tomorrow with Edwin Bailey. And Mr. Dwane Chappelle, Director of Education and Early Learning for the City of Seattle, and a Grambling graduate. And Dwane, man, congratulations, bro. I just want to say congratulations to you.
Thank you.
My man. And then also Linda.Thompson-Black, the Pacific Northwest Area Development Director for the United Negro College Fund. So what we just talked about seems, very positive, something to stick your chest out about, something to crow about. And this question is for each of you. And you know what? I will start. I'll just go. I'm going to go back to you, Dwane. Why are HBCUs in the position of declining enrollment? Dwane?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just push mute because if I'm clearing my throat, I don't want to be weird on the air. Here in the declining enrollment. So my hypothesis is that so you have so many institutions right now. So I think of several things. I think of and I hate that I can't speak to this as much, but I think about, like, I know there was a change in the Parent Plus loans, right? That's happening that they did from the state level. I think about the completion rates that are happening at HBCUs. And another third thing that I think about is like we have promise programs out here. And so just thinking about those three things, if there was a change in the plus loan program from the federal level, and then we know that certain schools are completing more students, and completion, if students are completing it, they actually have the financial means to continue through school. So I would say that would be potentially one. But I'm also thinking about that if students are taking advantage of promise programs out here, where when they graduate from high school, they get a couple free years of college, and they're not electing to go to HBCU straight out of high school, and then they find out that when wherever they decide to transfer from their 2-year university or school, and they don't be able to receive enough scholarship funds. So those are some other thoughts those are the top three things that come to my mind why HBCUs might have declining enrollment. I also think about I'll stop there and I'll chime in later when the others speak. So those are my top three things that I think about.
All right, and Linda, from your perspective, it's the same thing. Why are HBCUs in the position of declining enrollment?
Well, I think, as Dwane said, there's competition from predominantly white institutions that we didn't have and historically, we have seen a decline in loans. There are the plus loans that HBCU students receive. They were cut precipitously, and we've been working on getting them reinstated. But that was a huge blow because it cut out an important segment of loans that students and parents received, and then they could not pursue college education. I think we are rebuilding the awareness about HBCUs, and it's critical that we do so, and it's critical that we know the importance of HBCUs. And then we have had a lack of support and funding that we needed from the federal government, from state governments, and from the funding community. And without that, your ability to innovate and to revamp, campus facilities is impacted. We have been really working hard to increase funding to our colleges, and that is happening. We've recently had over $1 billion grant that was awarded to HBCUs. We're part of the support through COVID-19. And so there's a growing support for HBCUs and the funding that's required to support them. But I think that we have a wonderful opportunity to get in there and really let people know how committed we are. In Seattle, I feel we're having a huge rebirth. We had over 700 people who attended our recent gala. I want to invite everybody to the next gala, whether it's virtual or not. We're getting ready to have a virtual walk for education. And this is an opportunity for people to get behind HBCUs, to share their commitment, and to support them with funding, to encourage students to attend. So we need that kind of support, and we cannot fail in keeping this legacy alive.
You're listening to Rainieravenueradio.world. I'm going to give you, Rick, a chance to get at that question here. We're going to take a quick break, but again, fantastic information. That's how we get down on StreetBeat. I appreciate y'all and the information that you're sharing. We'll be back right after this.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at Rainieravenueradio.world.
This is your Rainieravenueradio.world community update on Seattle City Lights Utility Discount Program application. If you are impacted by COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, access the utility discount application online at seattle.gov/UDP for utility discount program, or call 206-684-3000. That's seattle.gov/UDP or 206-684-3000.
If you live in King County and you pay property taxes, and if you're 61 years of age or older and make less than $58,000 a year, you need to listen to what we're talking about right now. Do you know about the exemptions and deferrals for senior citizens? For more information, call 206-296-3920 or email exemptions.assessments@kingcounty.gov. That's 206-296-3920. Tune in to Rainier Avenue Radio to find out what you can do to prevent predatory home buyers from taking advantage of minority homeowners in the hopes of landing prime real estate to develop. Join us on Friday the 29th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. for this vital discussion. Join us on Friday. We'll be giving you messages all month long in support of keeping and maintaining your home, and advice that you can get all month long about how you can qualify for property tax exemptions. Tune in to Rainier Avenue Radio to find out what you can do to prevent predatory home buyers from taking advantage of minority homeowners in the hopes of landing prime real estate to develop. The news on Rainieravenueradio.world, your community resource for current information.
Hey, this is Kendra. Join me in the Rainier Avenue Radio News team Mondays at 6 p.m. and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Your community radio station, your community news. Get current, updated information. Look, we just tell you what's going on. You decide for yourself. Live news on Rainieravenueradio.world, your source for information. Anchored by Kendra Leon. The news on Rainieravenueradio.world. 6 o'clock on Mondays, 6:30 on Wednesdays. Your local community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. What's going on in Burien? What's going on in Bellevue? Mercer Island? Okay, well maybe not Mercer Island. No one brings it locally to you like
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting, "Ba-dee-ya" at city council meetings, I'm listening to Rainieravenueradio.world.
Welcome back to Rainieravenueradio.world. You're listening to Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B. We're having a conversation about HBCUs, and you will be if you're just joining in, you'll be able to go back and see this from the beginning, and I suggest you do. And I really appreciate my guest joining me, Linda.Thompson-Black from the Pacific Northwest Area Development Director for United Negro College Fund. Again, Linda, I know you just answered the question, but again, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you do and your eloquence in talking about this. It's just really appreciated. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you for having me on and for having this as a focus of your program.
And I ain't done with you yet, so we got some more to talk about. And my man Dwane Chappelle, again, started out as the principal of Rainier Beach, and you had a whole community upset that you were getting promoted because we loved you so much in the community. But at Rainier Beach High School, and now the Director of Education and Early Learning at the city of Seattle. And when, you know, I'm just giving, especially from the hood, just giving you love, man. Every time I talk to people, they go, I know Dwane Chappelle. Everybody always has great things to say about you, man. I might be afraid that you might leave us as the Director of Early Education and Education and Early Learning in Seattle, and you might try to run for president. I don't know.
You got my vote, brother. You got my vote.
I love serving the community. I am where I want to be.
And about to answer the question, a gentleman I've had the pleasure of playing football with when I was about 9 years old, and then breaking ground and breaking territory on the air in a major market radio station, and he was on the sports station, and I was Director of Community Affairs, and one day they put us together on a show for Black History Month, and phone lines blew up, but the Sonics ended up calling, being unhappy because we defended Gary Payton after the trade, among other things, but he broke in with Bob Blackburn, Mr. Rick DuPree. So the question, Mr. DuPree, is again, from your perspective, why are HBCUs in the position of declining enrollment after all of the things we just talked about?
Yeah, well, I think Dwane and Linda, really hit the nail on the head with their answers. I would echo what they said. I mean, one, you have more competition out there. Secondly, and I think is probably, in my opinion, one of the key factors is funding or lack thereof. Not only, whether it's financial aid or scholarships or whatever the case may be for students, but then also funding going to these universities so you can stay competitive from not only from a facility standpoint, but also from a faculty standpoint. That's critical, and having the funding to bring in the best. Edwin Bailey and I have been talking the past couple of weeks on the Thursday night show about HBCUs and the fact that this past NFL draft, only one player from an HBCU was drafted, yet 30% of the NFL Hall of Famers are from HBCUs. But again, there is a decline because of that lack of funding, and is the commitment there that was in the past. From a coaching standpoint, you had coaches that were there for 20, 30 years, and there was not only a tradition, but a legacy that was built. And so the third thing I would say, and I think is going to be critical, is, and Linda, you touched on this, raising the awareness, marketing. We're talking about all these wonderful things at the schools, and I had the benefit when I transferred from Florida A&M to the University of Washington. That there was a professor out at UW by the name of Al Black, who Linda knows very well. And Professor Black not only took me, but all of the Black students under his wing, and he was a person that.
I know Al Black too.
Yeah, exactly.
If you went to the UW, you knew Al Black. Go ahead though, but I got it. And Dwane, he stayed right around the corner from us.
Yeah. And so but the HBCUs, that is the norm at the HBCU. We as Black individuals don't get that at the white institutions, and Al Black was an anomaly. He put his arm around, figuratively and literally, around those Black students, and he encouraged us and was a huge. I mean, he made time. I remember. I don't know if you remember, Linda. I remember you being in his class, and I would come over to the house, and he made time, for the students. You don't see that these days. That is much more the norm at an HBCU. So these wonderful things, marketing, and how can we get that word out? I think that is going to be a huge part of kind of stopping this decline and really hopefully getting more students to consider and to really look at HBCUs.
And having, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say one thing I just wanted to add to what we were just talking about was that just from the broader perspective, I think overall there might be a slight dip in HBCU enrollment, but I don't think that applies to all HBCUs. And one other thing that I know is a complicated issue for the HBCUs that they have to compete with, not only the PWIs, but now if you think about the online schooling, right? The University of Phoenix's, or I shouldn't even call out that name, but just online schools. That's another platform that HBCUs have to compete with. And I know several HBCUs are transferring to that platform, but that's just another thing that you have to layer on top of if a school doesn't have the necessary funding to continue offering students who need financial assistance. The finances to stay in school, and then they have the online option, which potentially might be a little bit cheaper. So I just want to put that out there. There are several complicated factors that go into it too.
And just in case anybody out there, we're not talking in secret code. I'm not trying to be too hip for the room. So if you, when he's PWI, you're saying that and it's going on PWI, HBC, predominantly white institution. PWI, predominantly white institution, which is every other institution. And so, yeah, that's what we're talking about as that goes by. And now, if you're not familiar with the HBCU, you know what? There's not a problem. Historically, Black colleges and universities. So just in case those acronyms were confusing you, let me get that straight. Well, Dwane, you kind of touched on this, and again, with HBCUs, facing this competition from predominantly white institutions, how can HBCUs, and Linda, I'll start with you. How can HBCUs, and then you guys can chime in too, but I want to make sure each of you get an answer on this. How can HBCUs find ways to be more competitive with PWIs so that they can continue to enroll the best and brightest of African American students?
Well, I think that, we start with things like what you're doing, getting the word out, focusing on us, making us a priority. I am really blessed to have my dear Dwane Chappelle as a member of our leadership council. We have an incredible leadership council, and they have built up our Gala. They are out in the community working on this. But I want us to get behind this, to have a resurgence of our commitment. I like to say you get something out of going to an HBCU, whether you go there or not. You young people from here go to HBCUs, and then they're trained and they come back and they work here. Students from all over the country are trained at HBCUs. They come and work here. And in our family, my daughter went to Howard Law, and my son-in-law is a surgeon. He went to Xavier and then Ole Miss, and he did his residency at Howard. These are nurturing, wonderful institutions that provide a powerful education for our young people. So really, I think it's about exposure to what's possible. We have a portfolio project to help young people successfully navigate the gauntlet of applying to college, and that's really important. We have a scholarship fund. Our kids need financing for it, but I really think that it's about focusing on advocacy for young people going to college as well as HBCUs. And we have wonderful, groundbreaking work going on at HBCUs. But we as a people have to invest in it, and we have to get our allies to invest in it. And we have to know the importance of it. It takes nothing away from any other institution, but we have to value our institutions as well. And I know Rick, I have known Rick since I was I was a waiting pool director, and Rick was my supervisor. And we've been working in the community that long. Not to mention, he knows my wonderful husband, both of them do, who has been committed to African American education and higher education for 40 years. But this is our opportunity. This is something we can get behind, and that we can own and say, you know what, we're not going to let this go. And people have funded HBCUs with a quarter, a nickel, $1 million. We should get professional athletes behind HBCUs. Yes, you can support the colleges you went to, but you can also celebrate and financially support historically Black colleges and universities. So you're hearing it from me. One, we have to do it ourselves, and we can, but we have to invite other people to support us. And lastly, I want to say that, our colleges don't get the philanthropic support that white institutions do, and nonprofits and colleges that are led by African Americans don't get the support that we should get. We do outstanding work. We're disproportionately effective dealing with first-generation college students, but we don't get the same level of support that we deserve. So we have to advocate for us getting the support. We have to ask our companies. We have to ask ourselves, and that's how we're going to do it.
All right, Dwane, I'm going to throw that question at you in a second, but hold on, Linda, I want to talk to you for a second, all right? You are the Pacific Northwest Development Director, is that correct?
Yeah, Alaska, Washington, and Oregon.
Okay, all right. Now get ready, because right now, I want you to do a shameless self-promotion and plug for the event that you have coming up. You said that, again, you have these galas, and this year might be virtual. So before I go on to answer this question, I want you to turn a nickel into a manhole cover. Tell us about this event and what people can do to support it.
Oh, you are the best. Well, right now, the first thing, we're doing things a little differently this year. We're going to have more virtual
Then let
events.
us know. There we go.
And then, so this year, we're going to have a virtual walk. I want everybody to come out and walk, virtually, or if we can, we'll have a social distancing part of it. But everybody could get a team. Anybody can. You can be a team captain and get a team. I'd like to ask your corporation. We're asking every leadership council. And, you can get 10 people, and they can get 10 people. But I want you to come out and support our walk. It's going to be on September 19th, and we'll get more information out, and I'm going to get it to you, and you can get it from everybody. Then we will be having our workplace. So we have a major workplace campaign. So if you can give through your workplace, we'd like you to give through the workplace and be a workplace captain. And finally, we have a our gala. Now, our gala is fun, and we are so sad that we don't get to have it in person. It's just a wonderful, wonderful event. But we are going to have a virtual gala, and we're going to bring back the Evening of Stars. And
so you're gonna bring back? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. You're gonna bring back what?
The Lou Rawls Evening of Stars.
Oh, we'll have man! If you don't know about the UNCF and Lou Rawls, come on, man! Oh, that's
so you all can be a star on our Evening of Stars, because this is going to have a Northwest component of it, and we're just going to have a wonderful time and celebrate us as a people and our HBCU, and we are going to change the trajectory of what's happening at HBCUs. You saw Beyonce get out there. Penny Lattimore was recently supporting us, and we've had, Martin Luther King is a graduate of the HBCU, Samuel L. Jackson, Thurgood Marshall. But then we have all of the people who are on our discussion tonight. So I'm just saying, this is within our grasp. We can do this, and those are the events that we have coming up.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You need to be ready. If you're already ready, then you won't have to get ready. So somehow you get an opportunity like that, you take advantage of it. You're listening to Rainieravenueradio.world. It's me, Tony B, your host of StreetBeat. We're talking about HBCUs. I was asking the question, what can HBCUs do? How can they find ways to be more competitive against PWIs, to find those best and brightest of African American students? Dwane, your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of what Linda just said was on point, especially being here in the Pacific Northwest. When you think about the Pacific Northwest, you think of, okay, we're the closest, or there's no further than us, right, to Alaska, and the closest HBCU, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, is in Oklahoma. So it's like, how do we continue to do some of the things that Linda has been doing by bringing the HBCU college fairs here to Pacific Northwest, partnering with the organization UNCF out of Portland, Oregon, to make sure that families have an understanding of what the HBCUs are comprised of. And so when students up here, or young people up here, they have family down south and maybe have never visited an HBCU, and they're only used to hearing what they see around them, it's kind of hard to imagine yourself there. So I think some type of continuation of marketing and marketing around what they have to offer. For an example, I know this year at the HBCU fair that Linda put on at Garfield High School, that UNCF put on at Garfield High School, there were HBCUs offering kids, young adults, young people, acceptance into their institution, scholarship money. So just finding other ways to make sure that our young folks have access and know what's happening down south. Because the reality is that our predominantly white institutions have been taking a deeper look and an analysis of the practices that they've implemented over the decades, and they're looking at it from a race and equity lens, and they're seeing that the harm, whether it's been unintentional or intentional, that's been done to people that look like us. And so as they're peeling back the wallpaper, they're taking steps to say, hey, we want to bring in more minorities to these PWIs. And by that, what's happening is that it's offering more scholarship money, more funds. And the reality for us, for our folks, I know we all teach our young kids and our young people about financial literacy, to be financially free. And then sometime, or should I say now, you're presented with an option where you might be able to attend this HBCU, but then you'll have a full free ride, everything paid for, to a PWI. So sometimes it comes down to some of those hard choices, and young folks are making a decision that's what's going to be best for them financially. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that's the best decision that they could make. Not saying the HBCUs couldn't provide anything, but it's understandable when you feel you can walk into an institution, accomplish your goal that you've been marking off your wall for the last few years, and then walk away without any debt. I mean, that speaks volume. So saying all of that to say, other than the marketing piece, we have to find ways to help support our young folks with finances so they can attend HBCUs and not have to worry about anything.
You're listening to Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B. That was Mr. Dwane Chappelle. Thank you, sir, for your commentary. I'm just going to, before I get to you, Rick, it's just, we're talking about, again, what can you do to be more competitive? I said this earlier, 25%, and it sounded like that was a big deal to you too, of STEM students come from HBCUs. And that's so relevant because the other time I think about 25%, and I'm not going to change the subject here, but it's just the other time I think about 25% is even before COVID. 25% of African Americans were dying before even seeing a doctor. 1/4 of people who are black, that's 20, and that's incredible. So on the other hand, this is cool, and I know I got into something else there for a minute, but that is just a big figure. 25. So, Mr. DuPree, your thoughts, kind of quickly here, on what HBCUs can do to be more competitive with predominantly white universities.
Yeah, I'll be very brief after acknowledging the G that Dwane is showing a little Grambling there. But I think Linda and Dwane hit the nail on the head, Tony. And I would just kind of amplify what they've said. Is that it is such a wonderful experience, and how do we really market that more? We got it. I'll give you a great story. Phil Smart Sr., when I was at the Rotary Boys and Girls Club, Phil Smart Sr. used to tell me, he said, Rick, when we go out fundraising, he said, just tell the story. And HBCUs have a great story. And so how do we get that story in front of more people? How do we tell that story to more people? Whether it's in the schools, in corporations, and again, individuals that either are graduates of the schools, or like me, I am a parent of a graduate, and have seen the significance and the impact. We've got to be the ones on the front lines. And I think that's important. And then those individuals that are of a celebrity status, prominent, where people know, how can we get them, that are HBCU grads, how do we get them involved? I mean, you look at the entertainment industry, and Howard alone, just a tremendous list of individuals that are in the entertainment business. How do we get them more involved in telling the story? Because, there are the challenges like Linda and Dwane talked about, but where there is more competition, but again, I just think that again, telling that story is going to be a big piece of kind of more resurgence, and awareness, raising the awareness of what HBCUs offer.
Thank you, Rick. And I want to give everybody an opportunity for final words here. And Linda, are you there, Linda?
I am. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna save you for last, so you can give another shameless plug, and it's gonna have to be shorter this time. So I want you to be able, to put it all in there. So I'm gonna give you and save you for last, but it's still gonna have to be brief. So Dwane, man, first of all, thanks for joining me, and thanks for your leadership and your commentary. And again, I know there's a lot of people out there just happy to hear from you. But I want to give you the opportunity for final words here, if there's something that you just want to say in regards to HBCUs, and you're going to have about a minute to do it.
Yeah, so my final words regarding HBCUs, I think that our young people that look like us, black men, black women, and other of our folks of color, I think it's a wonderful experience, wonderful opportunity for us to take advantage of, to go somewhere and see what Black excellence, what Black brilliance look like, seeing other folks together that look like you, that are that have the same dreams and goals of you, and working in partnership with each other as you venture out into this world. Because the reality is, when in my experience and what I believe is that your first stop, it might not be your last stop on your educational journey, but at an HBCU, it just shapes you, it molds you, it helps provide your culture, build your identity of who you are and what you're going to be looking forward to accomplishing in this world. Because although we talk about HBCUs, where Black excellence happens, the reality is when we get out into this world, it doesn't look like an HBCU. So that's a small glimpse of your life that you have to be with other folks that look like you, and to share and get engaged into learning as you move forward in your life. So I highly encourage all people, all folks, especially our Black and brown folks, to look at an HBCU, find one that fits you and meets your needs, because they have so many of them, from some big ones, meaning large populations, to extremely small, like 400 or less HBCUs. So that's my last final word, and I thank you, Tony B, for doing this and sharing this knowledge with our folks up here in the Pacific Northwest.
My man. Rick, man, I'm gonna hold you to about 30 seconds. You have a show tomorrow night where you can talk a little bit more about your opinion on this if you have it. So I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, Dwane took some of mine. I'm gonna defer the rest of mine to Linda. I echo everything Dwane said, and I want to give it to Linda because for her to talk about what the UNCF is doing and what have you. So I will defer, and thank you for being here.
All right, Linda, you got about a minute and 40 seconds.
Well, I want to, say that education breaks the cycle of poverty, and this is what builds brighter futures. I want to invite and encourage everyone to get behind this. This is something we can do in our lifetime, which is ensure the legacy and opportunity for young people to have HBCUs in their lives and for our country. So you can start by getting with us right now. The first thing we're going to have is our virtual walk for education. I want you to join us. That's September 19th. You can reach me at 206-295-9936 or on my cell, 206-851-8178. And you can get involved. Join us for our gala. That is a lot of fun, and contribute to us through your workplace. We have a good time when we get together, but we are also deeply committed to the legacy of HBCUs. And once again, I invite you to join us.
All right. Thank you, Linda. That's it. That's all the time that we have. I will be back next week with another show. Dr. Grant will be joining me. Anyway, one more show on historically black colleges and universities. Thanks to all of my guests, Mr. Rick DuPree, Mr. Dwane Chappelle, and Linda. And again, Linda, we'll just get together and do a whole nother show on the United Negro College Fund. How about that? Let's just do that. That way we can do what we need to do.
Thank you, Tony, again for making this a priority.
And that's it. That's all the time I have. That's going to do it for the kid. You've been listening to Street Beat. And until the next time, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.
You know you can't get enough of Rainieravenueradio.world.